They're up to a certain number, but we have a lot of people that aren't accounted for. And this is the kind of destruction. In fact, they're telling me this is even not as bad as some areas. Some areas are even beyond this. They're just charred. So one thing we have the greatest people in the world looking and helping.
From Paradise, we go to Malibu now, where Jonathan Hunt is live with the latest there. Jonathan?
Arthel, good afternoon. There is, of course, a limit to how much comfort any president can offer to people who have lost pretty much everything. But that is what President Trump is trying to do today, to do his best to offer some comfort as he tours and gets a close-up look, both from the air and on the ground, of the extraordinary devastation around the Paradise, California area. Paradise being that town that was pretty much wiped off the map by the ferocity of the flames. The president, during his tour with Governor Jerry Brown and Governor-elect Gavin Newsom, both of whom are about as politically far from the president as you can get, has been peppered with questions about his views on climate change and his claim that some of these California fires could be avoided if there was better land management. Well, I can tell you this, that none of the people, the victims of this, who have lost their homes, give a whit right now about politics. What they care about is rebuilding their lives. And the president will get a sense when he comes here later today to Southern California of just how many people here too have lost their lives. So many scenes just like this one right in front of me right now. This is one of hundreds of homes in the areas north and west of Los Angeles that was so touched by the Woolsey fire. This, a home in Malibu on one street where about a dozen homes have been left. And that is not all the president is doing today. We've had a lot of tragedy, obviously, over the past 10 days in California. You'll remember the Borderline Bar and Grill mass shooting. 12 innocent victims gunned down there in the city of Thousand Oaks, about 40 miles outside of Los Angeles. Well, the president, we are told by his press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, will also meet some of those who were impacted by that terrible shooting. An awful lot of tragedy, as I say, here in Southern California over the last week and a half. And frankly, Californians need all the comfort they can get right now, Arthel.
And I know the nation collectively is sending a big hug and hope to those people in California, our fellow citizens. Jonathan Hunt, thank you.
And for more on all this, Captain Tony Imbreda joins us. He's the Public Information Officer for the Los Angeles County Fire Department and joins us on the telephone. Captain, thank you for joining us, and our hearts are with you and the courage of all the firefighters. What is it like now, first of all, for the search of so many who still remain missing?
Well, I can tell you here at the Woolsey fire, we are not in a situation where we have any missing. That issue is for the Northern California. 1,000 acres right now and about 82% containment. We are continuing to shore up and reinforce containment lines as I speak.
And Captain, can you explain what containment means? That doesn't mean snuffing it out.
Well, containment means as we have a perimeter, the forward spread of the fire here has stopped. And people in this area can see that, but there's really no smoke going up into the air. It's not a complete burn. It's a very large area, and there are areas of unburned fuel that still exist. But a containment line is the line around the fire that basically delineates no more forward progress. And as we move around that perimeter, we put in scratch lines, so we separate the burn fuel from the unburned fuel, and we continue to lay progressive hose lays around that fire. So in essence, we make sure that no fire debris, any hot debris, does not spill outside that outer perimeter and make it into unburned fuel.
Can you explain and describe to our viewers who are not from your area where that perimeter is now and where the danger continues?
Well, the perimeter it goes all the way down. If you go to the southern perimeter, it's along Malibu Canyon, and then it's roughly along the Decker Canyon area to the north, which is approaching the Ventura County line, and then across the 101 freeway to the county line up towards the 118 freeway. It's a very, very large area, approximately 20 miles across, hundreds of square miles in total, and it involves primarily the county of Los Angeles.
And are those homes still in danger in terms of that burn?
Well, there was a very high level of destruction because we have very steep terrain here and we have very dry vegetation. We've had extremely low rainfall over the last 7 years, so the moisture content in the fuel, the brush around these homes, is very low, and the brush is very, it's not resistant to ignition. So once any sort of ignition source is introduced into dry brush like this, fueled by steep topography and, of course, that extreme offshore wind, we get an extremely high rate of spread, and we had, unfortunately, a lot of structures were damaged and destroyed by the fire. Right now, that total stands at 836, but we currently have damage assessment teams that are out there on the fire line right now doing an accurate count of how many structures were destroyed.
And the president at his news conference, or his availability up north earlier this afternoon, talked about forest management. He mentioned Norway and dealing with the dry brush and the tree limbs and what's on the ground. From your experience, is this an issue of forest management, or is it the climate change? And as you mentioned, the drought and the high winds. Is it because you just haven't had a lot of rain for so long and this stuff is like kindling?
Well, when we're talking about Southern California, it's not a forest management issue because really this is not a forested area. The comments that the president was giving out last week with regard to forest management are really pursuant to forested areas. We're talking about timber areas. This is not that type of terrain. This is a brush area here. We have a lot of chaparral and grass and oak trees and that type of material. So it's not a forest management issue here. For us, Santa Ana winds and offshore winds with that dry heat is something that we get here every year. LA County Fire ramps up for this type of weather every year. It's nothing new to us. But what is new and what is worsening is the fact that we've had such low rainfall totals over the last 7 years that the brush is extremely dry. It really relates to the amount of moisture that's contained in the upper levels of the soil. And that moisture does not get itself into the brush when it's not there, obviously, and then the brush does not have any resistance to ignition, and the rate of spread is extreme. When you apply a Santa Ana wind to those conditions and the poor access that you get in the steep canyon roads in the Malibu area, you really have sort of a perfect storm that comes together to create a really, really extreme fire behavior scenario. It's very, very difficult because we have ember cast out in front of the firehead that will go 2 to 3 miles spotting behind where our firefighting activities are going on. We had a very intense fight on Friday night of last week where the fire had moved through the Thousand Oaks and Agora Hills area, butted up against the 101 freeway, and we positioned a lot of resources along the 101 freeway to try to make a stop there. And the ember cast was so intense, we had a lot of hot debris that was blowing over the top of our equipment and firefighters, and it started to spot along the 101 freeway behind us. And once the wind got behind that, it was literally just a few hours, and the fire burned from the 101 freeway all the way to the beach in a very, very short period of time. It was actually unprecedented for any of the veteran firefighters that have been working in this area for many years.
And we thank those veteran firefighters and praise their courage and the work that they're doing on the front line. Captain Tony and Brenda of the Los Angeles Fire Department, we thank you. Our thoughts are with you.
Los Angeles County Fire Department.
The county.
Los Angeles County Fire Department.
With the county, and we thank you and hope you can get all this contained and out and prevent it from happening perhaps in the future, because the dimensions are just unimaginable. Captain, thank you.
Thank you.
And meanwhile, another big story we're following this hour. Election officials in Florida hoping to wrap up the recount before tomorrow's deadline. Most counties have finished the hand recount in the hotly contested Senate race, where Republican Rick Scott holds a slim lead over Democratic incumbent Bill Nelson. Peter Ducey is live in Lauderhill, Florida, with the latest. Hi, Peter.
Arthel, this is the last hour for anybody who might have been told that their ballot was set aside because of a problem with a signature to come to an election facility and fix it. But even if the 5,700 or so that are outstanding are all fixed, and they all go for Bill Nelson, the Democrat. It is very difficult to see a big comeback for him, and that is because of the math. And the hand recount only helped the Democratic incumbent get 274 votes closer to Republican Rick Scott. Here in Broward, that is not nearly enough to make up a 12,000 plus vote deficit. And again, that deficit isn't going to be closed completely, even if all 5,700 of these mail ballots are returned today by 5 o'clock, or if the 2,000 ballots that somehow went missing here in Broward County between Election Day and the start of the recount are somehow all found and included and all go for Bill Nelson. But these missing ballots are something that have Nelson's lawyers here very upset, and they are not getting a clean answer from the director of the election here, Brenda Snipes, about where they are.
The ballots are in the building. The ballots are in the buildings. Somebody must have put their stack in a tray where it didn't belong, and we didn't pick that up. So we continue to count. What we can do is go back and recount. The ballots are in this building. There would be nowhere else for them to be, but they are misfiled.
Broward County officials are officially doing a hand recount right now of the agricultural commissioner's race, but lawyers for the Nelson campaign continue pressing for answers about the missing ballots in the Senate recount. Both Senate candidates have been laying low. Nelson and Scott have not been out in public much, so there's no new indication that Nelson might be getting ready to concede, especially because the Florida Democratic Party is sending out a fundraising appeal asking for donations to keep up the legal fight. Arthel?
Peter Doocy, thank you very much. And for more on this, we're going to go to Amber Athey. She's the breaking news editor at the Daily Caller, and we're going to start there with Broward County, Amber. Look, so they missed the machine recount deadline by 2 minutes. So election night numbers stand. They completed the state-mandated hand count in, just 2 hours. Are voters themselves up in arms?
Well, they should be, especially considering it seems like the Broward County election supervisor, Brenda Snipes, has not been accurately counting all the votes that should be counted. From the beginning of this process, it's been an absolute disaster. In addition to the number of allegations of misconduct in Ms. Snipes' past, in this election alone, she's been accused of not giving information to both parties involved in the race, including how many ballots there were left to count in the initial count of ballots, in terms of, in addition to that, Brenda Snipes, excuse me, in
That's okay.
Broward County and Palm Beach.
You know what, Amber, hold that thought for me, because we'll go back to Dr. Snipes in a moment. I do have a specific question regarding her. But, you know, look, a deadline is a deadline, but you know, is or can any group contest that the recounted votes by machine in Broward County won't count because of 2 minutes? I mean, you know, if you pull up an app on your phone, you call a car service, at least they'll wait 4 minutes for you.
Right. Well, I'm not sure who would actually contest this, because when you look at the results of the recount, there would actually be more votes going to Rick Scott in this case. So it's
listen, and understand where my perspective on this. It's about voters having confidence in the system, not about the outcome. I understand as it looks at this moment, what we do know that the votes may not be in favor of Senator Nelson, but that aside, I mean, people are said your one vote always counts. Get out there, you know. And so to hear in Peter Doocy's report just now, Dr. Snipes saying, I think the number was like 2,000 votes, that were set in the wrong file, so they weren't counted. You know, what are people to make of what's happening?
Right. There's no doubt that voters should be concerned that their votes are not being counted in this election. Broward County is not the only place where ballots have gone missing. After the initial machine recount in Palm Beach, they discovered that they were missing so many votes that this could not have been due solely to the recount, and that there were certain precincts of their county that were not included in that recount, and they were still trying to figure out where those were coming from. So voters should absolutely be concerned. You know, I hear people talk about all the time the integrity of our elections. Democrats Democrats are still talking about the 2016 election with President Donald Trump and saying that that was illegitimate because of Russia. We should also be concerned about things that are happening domestically.
No, stop. Don't do that. Don't mix those up. We're not talking about Russia, and we had proof from our intelligence agencies that Russia did interfere in our election.
But not
so
that
don't
they
do
changed
that.
any votes.
Right now,
so my
we're
point
talking
is that
we're
if
talking
people,
about incompetence.
Right.
That's what we're talking about, by people who are from America right here in this country. So don't confuse the two. Now, regarding Broward County, of course, there have been many complaints over the years. So I ask you, what is the future of Dr. Brenda Snipes, who is the supervisor of elections in Broward County? And also, I mean, is there any real talk of fixing the antiquated and dysfunctional voting systems in Florida and across the nation, for that matter?
Right. In terms of the machine recount, what they use there are these automatic scanner machines. In my opinion, those should be used in the first place as opposed to hand counting ballots. It seems to be a much more efficient way, provided the machines don't overheat as they did in Palm Beach. Of course, Jeb Bush was the person who first appointed Brenda Snipes, and he's now calling for her to be removed. And a lot of people are saying that's the best course of action because of her history of misconduct. The reason I brought up Russia was because I think that people should be concerned about everything that undermines our election, both foreign and domestic causes. That was my point there, not to compare the two.
Well, I appreciate that you clarified where you were going there. It's just that, you know, and we have to go, Amber, and I appreciate your reporting, because there's so much confusion, and it's our job to do our best to try to, you know, simplify and give proper information and clarification as to what's happening there. And that's where I was coming from with that. But our time is up. I thank you very much. We will see you again. Amber Athey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
And we have a Fox News alert on the continuing confrontation that is brewing at the southern border. The first group of that so-called migrant caravan, well, they've now arrived in Tijuana, Mexico. Just over the border, they are seeking asylum in our country. And thousands more are expected to arrive there soon. Here's reaction from the president earlier today.
We have large numbers of people trying to get into our country. I must say the reason it's increased so much is because we're doing so well as opposed to the rest of the world. And if you look at south of our border, is not doing so well.
William Lajeunesse is south of the border. He is right over it. You see the fence behind him in Tijuana on the beach. Hi, William.
Well, Eric, this is where the caravan wanted to make camp, on the beach, but the locals confronted them the first night, forcing the city to open a shelter instead. Also from here, you can see where the Border Patrol put up that razor wire on top of the fence so they can't climb over it. And as Lance moves over here, you see these anti-scaling plates. So therefore, the barbed wire, if you will, is not necessary. And as we come up here to the top, this is where the locals last night actually had a protest against the migrants. They don't want them here. And they have the support of the mayor. So contrast that to the other Mexican cities over the last 3 weeks where the caravan was welcome. The difference is they may be here likely for a long time, 6 to 18 months, according to the governor. And they've got about 2,600 in town today, according to the government, and that could double to over 6,500. So they're realizing their situation is not ideal. Rock on a hard spot, right? They haven't got a lot of options here. They can no longer walk over the border, claim asylum, and get released because President Trump signed that executive order. So they feel misled, they told me today, by some of the leaders of the caravan that they're not telling more. So I'm going to send it back to you, Eric, because I'm sending it back to you, Eric. I'll have more on this tomorrow. Bye.
All right, William. Thanks very much. Martha?
Well, Eric, President Trump making a surprise endorsement supporting Nancy.
None other than President Trump, who said he's willing to get Republicans to vote for her to put her on top.
I would help Nancy Pelosi if she needs some votes. She may need some votes. I will perform a wonderful service for her. I like her. Can you believe it? I like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's tough and she's smart, but she deserves to be Speaker.
That's not necessarily an endorsement Pelosi was looking for, though. And this week, she was adamant that she'll win the speakership with Democratic votes. Congresswoman Marcia Fudge is one of the Democrats considering challenging Pelosi for the top job as Speaker. On Friday, the two met for 45 minutes behind closed doors to discuss what it would take for Fudge to support Pelosi. Afterwards, Fudge said she plans to make a decision over Thanksgiving.
Sometimes you just need a different voice. Sometimes you just need a different kind of a vision. But I want to be clear. that I have not said anything negative about Nancy because I think she's a very, very good leader.
Many of Pelosi's critics believe she's been in power for too long and pushed younger lawmakers to the side. So one possibility being discussed to appease those concerns is Pelosi agreeing to limit herself to 2 years as Speaker and then stepping aside to let new leadership take the reins. Eric?
All right, Garrett, thanks so much. Arthel?
All right, well, for more on this, let's bring in Jason Nichols. He's a liberal commentator and professor, and bring in Kim Alfano as well. She's a Republican strategist. Thank you both for being here. So, Jason, I want to start with you.
Thanks for having us.
Will this be an avoidable self-inflicted injury by the Democrats to be embroiled in intramural fighting at the very start of their rule over the House, over the Speaker position?
I really don't believe there's going to be a fight. I honestly believe that Marcia Fudge, who is a fine politician, is not going to run. I think she's going to be a team player. I think that Nancy Pelosi has proven herself to be an effective leader. And there's, when you win the Super Bowl, you don't change your quarterback. So I think she needs to be the leader of the party. Marcia Fudge only has 24 supporters by her own count. She also has some issues in terms of supporting LGBT protections, civil rights protections that I think won't endear her to a lot of other Democrats. So I think that Nancy Pelosi will be the Speaker. I don't think it'll even be close, and I really believe that Marcia Fudge is going to support her.
Kim, what's your take?
I think he's right. She's going to be the leader. I don't know why anybody wants the job. She's going to see what it's like to, be in charge of a caucus that does not agree with itself. It's going to be a thankless job. I cannot wait for her to have to deal with, the socialists in her party and the younger folks from the far left that are going to have some ideas that Nancy Pelosi will even think are far left. And frankly, it's great for the Republican Party. Either way, whether it's her or someone new, they're going to have to make a case for undoing all the good that we've been able to do for raising. They're going to have to make a case for raising taxes and for bringing back regulations that we were able to roll back, and for stopping the economy from moving forward with those types of policies. So I don't know why she wants the job.
Jason, Jason, how can Congresswoman Pelosi, win over whatever opponent she has at this time? And should she, I think Garrett Tinney sort of hinted at this, or, this is what, he doesn't hint, he's a reporter, this is what he addressed in his story. Should Congresswoman Pelosi promise to take on a protege, teach a future Democratic House Speaker if she gets the reins again, while she's
I absolutely believe in mentorship. I think she should be grooming new leadership as she, takes the Speaker's position. So I think that's absolutely a good thing. And as far as taxing people, that's not what's in the Democrats' plan. We want to tax the super wealthy who have the money to pay for things. So I think, even with some of the progressive things that have been argued for, like Medicare for all, you don't get that even in the conversation without ACA. And the way you got ACA was Nancy Pelosi. So I think that even the progressive wing of the party, which I consider myself to be a part of, I think that, they're going to come along and realize that she is an effective leader and that she's the person for the job right now. But she absolutely should groom someone else to take the reins.
So, Kim, let's talk about President Trump. What is his political calculus behind offering votes to Nancy Pelosi? And can he really deliver votes?
I'm sure he can. He's done a lot of things none of us thought he could do. I think the calculus is, again, it's not easy to be the party that has to now come in and, in their minds, scratch everything and start over again. And especially when everybody agrees, Republican, Democrat alike, that the economy is in a good place. So I think that he's happy either way, but I think he has a rapport with Nancy Pelosi. And frankly, we as
She's
Republicans
been a punching bag of his
her
out on the campaign trail
exactly,
the last few months, though.
I was going to say, as Republicans, we put a lot into this, so we'd love to have her right there at the head of this for another couple of years or so until the next set of elections.
How'd that work out for you? using her as a punching bag. Didn't work out very well. But what I will say is I think that the president has a different calculus. I think that he wants to sow the seeds of discord within the Democratic Party. He also thinks perhaps that Nancy Pelosi will owe him one on that border wall that's never going to get built. So I think, he's trying to make people distrust one another. He knows if Republicans vote for Nancy Pelosi that maybe some Democrats will start to distrust her. I don't think it's going to work. She's already widely rejected Republican support. She's going to win with Democratic support.
Yeah. Okay, well, Kim, I'm sure you have something to say about that, but I just got a hard wrap, which means I have to go. So I do apologize to you, Kim.
No worries.
But we'll have you on again. Appreciate your perspective to you both, Kim and Jason.
Thanks, Arthel.
Thanks,
you. Kim.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have to go back to coverage of the California's wildfire. The president witnessing the horrible devastation firsthand. Those fires still ravaging both ends of the state. We have Fox News team coverage on his day-long visit and an update on the firefighting.
A Fox News alert, President Trump wrapping up his visit in Northern California, where he met with firefighters and victims of a devastating wildfire. In an interview airing on Fox News Sunday tomorrow, the president doubled down on his initial reaction to the fires, suggesting poor fire management is at least partly to blame.
You need forest management. It has to be. I'm not saying that in a negative way or positive. I'm just saying the facts. We have to take care of all the dead wood that's so dry. You can take some of these trunks, you can take a match and you can light it on fire.
We have Fox team coverage. Meteorologist Adam Klotz is live from the Fox Extreme Weather Center, but we begin with White House correspondent Kevin Corke. Kevin is live in Paradise, California. Hi, Kevin.
Arthel, always nice to be with you, even in a difficult circumstance for the folks here in the beautiful Golden State of California. I just want to say this, from the president's perspective, despite the comment, he wasn't trying to make it political, White House officials say. He was trying to make a statement of fact. In fact, they've said as much today that now's really not the time for politics on the left or the right. The time is to get out there and do what's right, and that is provide all the help we can for the people of the state of California.
Hopefully this is going to be the last of these, because this was a really, really bad one. And I know Gavin's committed, we're all committed, I'm committed to make sure that we get all of this cleaned out and protected.
White House officials tell us that the main focus, Arthel, of this trip is for the president to meet with firefighters and first responders and, of course, the families who've been impacted by these devastating fires. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that the state and the federal government can't work together to do more to prevent fires like this from happening in the future.
We're all in the same path. We do have to do management, maintenance, and we'll be working also with environmental groups. They've really, I think everybody's seen the light. And I don't think we'll have this again to this extent.
Now, I want to share just a couple of facts and figures because I think there's been some misunderstanding about the idea that there's a price tag that you can put on American life. There is no price tag, but clearly this has been an ongoing problem, Arthel, and the president and the White House, for that matter, as well as FEMA and others, are saying this is an expensive problem as well, which should undergird the argument that we can all do better to better manage the forest and better manage the resources that go into trying to rebuild. Let me share this. Since 2000, believe it or not, 2005, that is, the country has given $6 billion in FEMA grants to California to rebuild after these massive fires. That's just one little nugget to explain why they feel like now's the time to get together. Back to you.
Kevin Corke, thank you very much from Paradise, California. And by the way, you can see the full interview with President Trump tomorrow on Fox News Sunday. Check your local listings to see when it airs on your local Fox station. Chris Wallace there with the president. It also airs here on the Fox News channel at 2 p.m. Eastern and again at 7 p.m. Eastern.
One of the topics discussed, of course, has to do with the air quality. You don't have to be at the fire scene to be affected. We're told that the air quality in California is also hazardous. The wildfire is bringing dangerous levels of smoke and exhaust to San Francisco and nearby areas more than 150 miles away. Prolonged exposure considered harmful, even if you're healthy. The San Francisco Chronicle says that going outside in San Francisco